Business Focus with
Good morning,
Kudzie, Sharara on the
Great.
Champions
So
League
yeah,
breakfast.
today
We have
we can start with
Kudzie,
what's happening
Sharara
on the global stock market.
Yeah, let's business. So we get to understand what's happening in the world of business. So we have him on the line today. He's not with us in the studio, but all the same, we are going to have Business Focus. Good morning to you, Kudzie. How are you doing today?
In Japan, which was down.
Great, thank you so much. Let's begin with the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange trading update for
the biggest
Tuesday.
Drop of that market since 1987. And one of the reasons why the Japanese stock market is dropping is because of it's partly to do with their currency, the Japanese yen, which has been strengthening against the US dollar since the Bank of Japan raised interest rates last week. And what it has done, because it's strengthening against the dollar, it has made Japanese goods in general more expensive for foreign investors and buyers. And also one of the reasons also why the Japanese market is falling like that is because when for a very long time interest rates in Japan were almost like zero for a very long time, and their currency was also very weak against the US dollar. But since they started putting up interest rates, and also their currency is also starting to be stronger than to gain ground against the US dollar. So people, when the yen was the interest rates were low, when interest rates were very low, the Japanese people or investors were borrowing from banks. You borrow because the interest rate is low, and you buy stocks and whatever you decide to buy with your money when interest rates are very low. So what they've now that interest rates are high in Japan, people are selling off their stocks. So on Friday it was down by more than 5%, I think about 5.8%, and then yesterday by another 12%. So since Friday, the Japanese stock market is dropped by more than close to 18%, which is huge when it comes to stock markets. But again, it didn't stop in Japan. It then went across the world. Most Asian stock markets were also down by between 4 and 8% in most of those markets. And then when the US markets also opened, they were also falling significantly. And in the US, one of the reasons why stocks in the US were also plunging is because of the slowdown in the US economy. It's not growing as expected, and in terms also of jobs creation, the US economy created just about, I think from information in July, the US economy created about 114,000 jobs, which was way less than what was being expected. And the unemployment rate actually went up from 4.1% to 4.3%. And again, so there are fears that the US economy can actually go into a recession. And again, that has resulted in that tumble of global stock markets across continents, except obviously countries like Zimbabwe. They seem like in a way insulated from what's happening globally. And I know a lot of people ask, why is it Zimbabwe when everywhere else in the world, why is it Zimbabwe stock market is not affected by that? I think it's to do with the level of trade that, for example, the level of trade that we do with the US, with Japan. So a slowdown in the US economy does not have an effect on the Zimbabwean economy. To some extent, yes, interest rates in the US when they are high, to some extent they affect us because we are dollarized, sort of like we use a lot of US dollars. But at the end of the day, we are sort of like insulated because we do not trade that much with the United States. So whatever happens in their markets, we are in a way insulated. The US also, one of the reasons again why the US has remained, why the US markets are also coming off, is because because the Federal Reserve is hesitating to cut interest rates. So interest rates in the US has remained high, which means that for those who want to borrow for expansion, for whatever, the interest rates are too high, and again that feeds into slower economic growth. So yeah, that's what's been happening globally.
0.4%, and this was on the back of days.
What do you mean there?
So I mean, like,
it's cheaper when you buy Urimu.
Yeah, even locals, because what they've done in Japan, they've put up interest rates. So it means everyone who is borrowing, whether so there is issue of interest rates. So if you are in Japan and interest rates are high, it means if you were in the past, like what was happening in the past, they would borrow so that they can go and buy stuff. But now the interest rates are high, so it means things are now a bit expensive, because if you are borrowed, you're now paying higher interest rates. And then it's also to do with the currency, which is the yen, which I was saying that it gained ground against the US dollar. So someone who was changing US dollars to buy yen and buy things in Japan, they were cheap in the past, but because of the strengthening of the Japanese yen, those things are no longer cheap. Maybe when you needed six Japanese yen, you now need 7, so it becomes expensive for you.
Yes. So can we safely say that the Japanese market's fall is having a contagious effect on other Asian markets?
Yes, it does, because it also comes to what extent do these markets trade against each other. And if there are open markets where investors play in both markets, in global markets we have people who play in both, let's say the Nasdaq, which was also coming off significantly, and the S&P 500 and the FTSE 100, which is the UK one, and then the Wall Street all share index. All those were coming off. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, all those were coming off, because these investors, they play in all these markets, and it has got that contagion effect on these markets as well, because people are looking at, say, if Japan coughs or sneezes, the others also feel it. Yes. So just like the US economy is the biggest economy in the world, and now we are saying that there is expected slower growth, and it's not creating as much jobs as expected, and the Federal Reserve is keeping interest rates high. It will affect quite a number of economies, because this is the biggest economy in the world.
Zimbabwe Stock Exchange.
Yeah, so Zimbabwe Stock Exchange may affect not necessarily what's happening on the global economy. Like I said, yes, we do use the US dollar, and if interest rates in the US dollar remained elevated, what it actually means is that some investors that might be looking at Zimbabwe might say, I know, why should I go to Zimbabwe where it's more riskier than the US? So I'll just take my money to the US, because in the US, if I put my money in the bank, I'll earn more interest rates.
It's further down
However,
by
if we are talking about what has happened recently, this global market tumble that we are talking about, I don't see that affecting the Zimbabwean economy at the moment, and I don't see it affecting the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, which I said has got its own issues. So you find out that local macroeconomic issues have got a more bearing on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange than the global macroeconomic issues. So where we are affected when things happen globally is when we look at things that we import the most. For example, if it was fuel prices going up across the globe, then Zimbabwe will obviously be affected because we import that. At that time when we couldn't import wheat because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, then we were affected in terms of prices of wheat. So those are things that affect us. But when it comes to the stock market, the flow of portfolio investments, we are not that much affected. But you'd expect South Africa to be affected, because it's an open market, it's a bigger market, it's a deeper market, and it's affected by what happens globally. So the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, however, like I said, it has got other macroeconomic issues that affects it, and at the moment it's starting to show weaknesses. We remember it had a bull run for close to a month, approximately a month,
right,
and then it's coming off now due to profit taking and other fundamentals. Yesterday, the All-Share index was down by 0.93%, but the top 10 index, which obviously gives direction to the market, had a bigger loss of about 1.4%, 1.43%. That's on the top 10 index. And then you've got some of the counters that traded positive. You had Unifreight gaining about 14.97%. It's in the logistics sector. Pro Plastics 14.94%, good. ZHO up by 14.19%. FBC up by 13.62%, and then Art Corporation completing the top 5 risers with 11.07% gain. And then on the downside, we had losses in CBZ down by 13.33%, GB Holdings down by 13.6%, OK Zimbabwe down by 6.01%, Citco and Mikus dropping 5.76% and 5.72% respectively. So you can see those losses, that there are significant losses that were recorded. And then moving over to the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, it was also down by 0.13%, dragged down by losses in National Foods, down by 5.71%, Padenga 2.54%, and Simbisa down by 1.32%. So that's how our markets traded. Not much money going into the VFX, just about $13,890 changing hands in the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. And then on the ZSC, about 16.5 million ZIG changing hands there. So significant amounts there being recorded on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, with Econet getting the bulk of the funds that were invested, about $2.9 million, Tanganda 2.6 million, TSO 2.5 million, BAT 2.5 million as well, and Hippo $1.94 million.
I remember very well. What will it mean to them? Competitors are raging like this every day.
For Econet, yes, it has had a good run this year, just like most of the big caps. In the last few days, it has been coming off, but not significantly. So it has maintained its gains. Yeah, competition is coming. Starlink is coming, but I think from what we've been reading in the press is that Starlink, any other company can come and partner with Starlink. It's not exclusive to what's that name? Company IMC. It's not exclusive to them. So any other company can partner. So even Econet might decide to do that. But also, what I always say is that there are many areas that are not reachable by phone or by internet in the rural communities. You know, you try to call your mother in the rural area and you can't get hold of them. But if for example, Starlink comes in, right, and my mother gets to call me in Harare, but in a phone either one of these mobile network operators. So she's not calling me, but benefit is on both sides.
So you think it's actually a good idea?
I think it's a good idea. Yes, some market share can be taken, but you can lose market share, but you can still grow your usage. It can still grow. And remember, recently we're talking about even voice. Voice has got nothing to do with data, but we're saying one of these mobile network providers recorded, in fact, it's listed, so Econet, they recorded at 40% growth in voice calls. Yes, voice chat. So yes, Starlink can come. Yes, tinogona kufona nema WhatsApp, but vanhu vachiri kuda phone chaiche kunyatsophona.
Yeah, direct call.
Direct call. It's still happening. And remember that I'm a phone, not my smartphone. No, do you know that penetration is actually very low in my smartphones, which means that I was very vanokwanisa kufona via WhatsApp, right? And my base stations, my haasi ane ma 2G and the like saka avazisa vanofana kwanisa kufona pawhatsapp zvine quality. So yeah, these are some of the fundamentals. So I think they're still in the game, and we'll see what happens.
So there's a question here from a listener who says, going back to the markets, say that does that have any link? I think the issue, the Japanese market we were talking about, does that have any link with the ZiG rate? I believe those global markets trade in gold.
From a minimum,
but not. I haven't checked gold this morning to see how it is performing when everything else is like this. So we'll do a quick check of what's happening with gold. But if gold is affected in terms of the gold price, if it's affected, yes, there is got an impact on ZiG. But as I'm just looking now, yesterday, gold price fell by 1% as wider market crash spills over. So it was not insulated there as well. I remember gold went up to a record of 2,500 a few days ago, but it's back to just approximately 2,000, 2,400. So it's been coming off as well, and obviously that will have an impact on ZiG in terms of the value of our reserves. I am still to establish whether there is really a very good link between the ZiG exchange rate and the value of the
it was breaking a bit. Maybe you can rewind a bit on what you had said.
Gold. So those ones you can easily link them to the price of gold, but the price of or the exchange rate of ZiG, that one is still up in terms of where exactly it should be.
But I know.
So I'm reading in today's Herald, the business section, where they're saying over 450 million US dollar ZIDA projects implemented. About nearly 30% of the projects licensed by the Zimbabwe Investment and Development Agents ZIDA in 2022 are now operational, with the actual investment totaling 450.3 million US dollars. Latest data from agency shows. Is that the best that we can go? 30%?
I think there is some information that we might need to find out. For example, my timelines are because these projects that you're talking about are projects for that were, I think, licensed in 2022. So we went 2022, 2023, now in 2024. Now we need information to say these projects, were they long-term projects? Like, for example, if it's mining, if it's mining, it might not be operational now. Munakawaya license, but there's still a whole lot of processes that they've got to go through.
I think
maybe
going forward, the financial
and
intelligence
like
unit should
so
also be naming and shaming
for us to
those
see
who are doing that, so that at least
projects becoming operational. So I think it's information that we need to find out from ZIDA to say these projects that you are saying are now 30% operational. What were the time frames? What were you expecting as ZIDA to say by 2024 June? These projects that we have licensed in 2022, they should be operational. Only then can we say the 30% that they are
just
talking
briefly,
about is a
we've got 2
good
minutes to
number
go now.
or not.
Let's
a
look
good
at the
number.
insights
Because
from the NetBank
30% is a
briefing.
failure. 30% is you want to fail. It would have found out about 50% or 50% in above. But then we don't have information to say Ivo purchase rao. Why expected by now my projects avaka license muna 2022 and our operational area. So we'll try and maybe get to find out from ZIDA if they are willing. We can give them a call one of these days and they can explain to us to say, Ivo, what were their targets in terms of projects that should be operational by now? Because that number, 30%, just looking at that value, 30%, it seems like it's we are not doing as much as we should, because these projects were worth about so the thing is 30%. So that's they were worth about 2.4 billion. You know, when we were hearing those figures, remember we have spoken about them. Legitimate figures are very impressive. 2.4 billion of licensed companies, but then it comes to the actual investment. And if you look at this 450, it's not like money that is coming. In terms of money that is coming, it's about 85 million US. But the other investments, as it was 450, plant and equipment. You know, ada kuita manufacturer munomotonga ine plant yake ine value and it's been added to this 450. And then cost time notoya tori mari cash maybe for whatever ada kubhadhara vashandi, ada ma consumables and and other services, though $85.3 million yakauya. Otherwise,
they're also saying of the 266 projects licensed in 2022, 78 were operational as of June 30, 2024, based on renewal assessments.
Yes, so again, it's again 78 out of 266. You'd expect a bigger number there again. So I think it comes back to the issue that I spoke about, to say maybe if they are mining, actually, in fact, it's a fact though that most of these projects.
All right, Kudzie, thank you so much for Business Focus. Let's be on standby for the news at 8, and thank you so much. Have a very good day.
More licenses are in the mining sector,
Business
and it
Focus
takes
with
time
Kudzie, Sharara on the Champions League
for mining
breakfast.
projects.